You know the face. You've seen it everywhere, on t-shirts, posters, maybe even a bumper sticker or two. It's got to be one of the most famous images on the planet.
But here's the thing. While almost everyone recognizes the face, the actual story of the man behind it, well, that's a whole lot more complex and way more controversial than most people think.
So that's what we're going to get into. We're going to peel back the layers on the journey of Ernesto Guevara and figure out how exactly he became the revolutionary icon known to the world simply as Che. All right, let's dive in, because you have to understand, Che wasn't born a revolutionary firebrand. Nope. His story starts pretty normally, in a middle-class family in Argentina, with his sights set on becoming a doctor.
So Ernesto Guevara grows up in a home full of books. We're talking Marx, Freud, you name it. He had this really severe asthma that kept him inside a lot, but it didn't slow him down. He even got the nickname El Chancho, the pig, because apparently bathing wasn't his top priority. He was on a straight path to medical school, but then one single trip, it changed absolutely everything.
So when he's in his early 20s, Guevara takes off on this incredible 8-month road trip across South America. His motorcycle, which he called the Mighty One, gives out on him pretty early on, but he just keeps going. And what he saw? Man, the kind of poverty that's hard to look at, foreign companies exploiting local workers, and the humanity he saw volunteering at a leper colony in Peru, it just completely shattered his perspective on the world.
This journey totally remade him. You can feel it in his diary, where he wrote, "I am not myself anymore. At least I am not the same inside." He came away from that trip completely radicalized, convinced that all the different countries in Latin America were just an illusion, that it was really one single body crying out to be free.
And that conviction got set in stone when he was in Guatemala and saw a CIA-backed coup overthrow a democratically elected leader. Why? Because that leader had dared to stand up to a big American company. For Che, that was it. That was all the proof he needed. Peaceful change was a fantasy. The only way forward was armed struggle.
So with this brand new, fiery purpose, Che ends up in Mexico. And this is where history really turns a corner. He meets two brothers, Fidel and Raúl Castro. They have this, honestly, insane plan to sail back to Cuba and overthrow the dictator Batista. And Che, the doctor from Argentina, he signed up on the spot. In 1956, they actually did it. They set sail from Mexico. And get this, their boat, the Grandma, was a leaky little yacht built for 12 people. They crammed 82 men on board to go start a revolution. 82! To say it started badly is the understatement of the century. It was an absolute catastrophe. Batista's army was waiting for them. They were ambushed the second they landed. Of those original 82 fighters, only about 19 managed to scramble away into the mountains.
But, sometimes legends are born from impossible odds. Hiding out in the mountains, those few survivors earned the trust of the local farmers and slowly, painstakingly, rebuilt their army. And Che, the guy who came along to be the doctor, turned out to be a brilliant and pretty ruthless military commander. That's when he earned the title Comandante. And in just 2 years, this tiny band of rebels took down the entire Cuban army.
So, they won. The rebels are in charge. But, as it turns out, winning the war is the easy part. Now they had to actually govern. And Che the revolutionary had to become Che the politician, a role that would complicate his story forever.
And this is where Che's legacy gets really polarized. On one hand, you have his supporters who see a hero. He spearheaded these incredible literacy campaigns that taught almost 1 million Cubans to read. He pushed for land reform for the peasants. On the other hand, you have his critics who call him the butcher of La Cabaña. He was in charge of the tribunals that executed hundreds of Batista loyalists and political opponents, something he defended as necessary revolutionary justice.
Che tried the government thing. He was president of the National Bank, minister of industries, but he was a terrible fit. You could just tell he was a fighter, not a paper pusher. He got more and more restless, and he even started criticizing Fidel Castro for getting too cozy with the Soviet Union. In his mind, the fight wasn't over, not even close.
So in 1965, he does something that just blows everyone's minds. He completely vanishes from public life. He walks away from his powerful job, walks away from his family, and decides to go export the revolution to the rest of the world. His first stop was the Congo, where he tried to just copy and paste the Cuban Revolution. It was a complete disaster, failed within months. But he wasn't deterred. His next target was Bolivia. He was convinced it was the perfect place to spark a revolution that would sweep the entire continent. It would be his last fight.
But things went wrong in Bolivia from the start. His small band of fighters was completely isolated. They couldn't get the local people on their side. They were starving, outgunned, his asthma was raging, and they were being hunted by Bolivian special forces who were trained and helped by the CIA. On October 8, 1967, he was wounded in a firefight and captured.
The very next day, the order came down from the Bolivian president: execute him. According to those who were there, his last words were defiant. He looked at his executioner and said, "Shoot, coward, you're only going to kill a man." For him, you could kill the person, but you could never, ever kill the idea.
And just like that, after a life that had reshaped countries and spanned the globe, Ernesto Che Guevara was gone. He was only 39 years old.
So, Che the man was dead, but Che the myth? Oh, that was just getting started. And it's a legacy that is as powerful as it is ironic. After they executed him, they buried his body in a secret, unmarked grave. And it stayed that way for 30 years, until 1997. When his remains were finally found, they were sent back to Cuba and reburied as a national hero with full honors. And then, of course, there's the image. That photo, Guerrillero Heroico, heroic guerrilla fighter, it became the global symbol for rebellion. And this right here is the ultimate irony. A man who gave his entire life to destroying capitalism became one of its biggest, most profitable brands. His face is a product, sold on everything, all over the world. For so many people, that image is completely disconnected from the actual man, from his complex and, yeah, often brutal political beliefs. He is frozen in time as both a heroic freedom fighter and a cold-blooded killer. So I'll leave you with this question to think about. How on earth does one of history's most hardcore anti-capitalists become a best-selling t-shirt? The answer to that probably tells us a lot more about our world today than it does about Che Guevara himself.